Ever get the feeling the world of finance is kind of like this giant engine, just chugging along with a mind of its own?
It could definitely feel that way.
But that's what makes it so fascinating to break down. And today, we're really hitching a ride on one part of that engine, seeing how AI is starting to transform insolvency and bankruptcy, specifically in India.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting area to focus on, especially because India made some pretty big waves with its 2016 Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, right?
Right?
And that wasn't just lawyers fiddling with legal jargon. This was about overhauling how a huge, complex economy deals with businesses on the brink.
Totally. So we've got this whole intricate system in place now, but just think about the mountains of financial data involved in these cases. I mean, even with the best legal minds, it's got to be overwhelming.
It absolutely is. And that's where AI comes in. I mean,
Right.
this is where it gets really, really interesting. Think of it this way. Insolvency professionals, the folks navigating this whole maze, they're about to get a serious upgrade thanks to AI.
An upgrade, more like they're getting superpowers, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So what kind of superpowers are we talking about here?
Well, one of the most powerful ones is the ability to practically see into the future, at least when it comes to a company's finances. We're talking algorithms crunching massive data sets, company financials, obviously, but also market trends, even things like social media sentiment, all to spot those early warning signs of potential insolvency, stuff a human might miss entirely.
So we're not just looking at a snapshot of their current balance sheet. AI can tell us if a company's heading for a cliff, like 6 months, a year down the line.
Exactly. Let's say a company suddenly ramps up their positive social media posts. Could just be marketing, right?
That's pretty standard.
Right. But the AI digs deeper, connects that to, say, a dip in product reviews or slowdown in their supply chain. Suddenly, all that online hype looks a lot like a company trying to cover up some serious financial trouble.
Wow. Okay, so AI's got this almost sixth sense for sniffing out risk. What else can it do when it comes to insolvency?
Well, on a less glamorous note, it's also a master at sniffing out fraud, which unfortunately is something you see a lot in these situations.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Think about it. The web of transactions, shell companies, hidden assets. It would take a human forever to unravel all that.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack, a digital haystack.
Exactly. And that's where AI thrives. It lives for those patterns, finding those tiny little inconsistencies that scream fraud, but that a human might miss.
So AI is like this financial X-ray, seeing right through the tricks.
And here's the thing. It's not just about catching the bad guys after the fact. Identifying these patterns early on can prevent huge losses, protecting everyone from creditors to investors.
Okay, so that's huge. So we've got the risk prediction, we've got the fraud detection,
Yeah.
anything else AI can bring to the table. Because from what I've read, it can even help with some of the, well, frankly, boring parts of insolvency cases too, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about tasks that used to take weeks, months even, getting streamlined big time. Take due diligence, for instance.
Essential. But man, that deep dive into a company's financials, can you imagine?
And AI can analyze all those documents, assess the financial health, spot red flags. We're talking a fraction of the time a human team would need.
So less time drowning in paperwork, more time for the real detective work, huh?
Exactly. And it's not just due diligence either. Think about reviewing contracts, finding inconsistencies in legal documents, even drafting parts of those monster resolution plans.
Wow, AI is taking on the grunt work. I like it.
I
Okay, but let's get practical for a sec, because reading about this stuff is one thing, but seeing it in action really blows your mind. This whole ChatIBC thing, for example.
Yes. ChatIBC, basically your AI chatbot that's fluent in Indian insolvency law.
Sounds pretty niche when you put it like that.
It might sound niche, but think about it. You got lawyers, creditors, investors, even the company's own employees, all needing answers, often urgently, about how this whole process works.
Right, right. They need info fast.
And ChatIBC can provide that guidance instantly. Legal processes, specific questions, even tailored advice based on their situation.
Like a 24/7 legal helpline, but specifically for insolvency in India.
Exactly. And to be clear, it's not about replacing human lawyers. It's about making that expertise more accessible, more efficient.
Totally. And then you've got this whole other level, these AI-powered asset liquidation marketplaces.
Right. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Imagine a company goes insolvent. Often they've got valuable assets, real estate, equipment, intellectual property.
Stuff that needs to be sold off to, well, pay everyone back.
Exactly. Traditionally, that process was a nightmare. But AI swoops in, creates these online platforms where buyers and sellers from anywhere can connect,
Streamlines the whole thing, makes it way more transparent.
and potentially gets a much better return on those assets. AI can assess the market, figure out the optimal time to sell, even match sellers with the perfect buyers. Efficiency and fairness, all rolled into one.
This all sounds incredible, like AI is the magic bullet for insolvency, but I'm guessing it's not quite that simple, is it?
You're right to be cautious. Like with any new tech, especially something this powerful, we got to be aware of the potential downsides too.
Downsides. Okay, let's dig into that. What are some of the challenges we need to be thinking about when it comes to AI and insolvency?
Well, one of the biggest ones, and it's something that comes up a lot, is the whole issue of unintended consequences.
Right,
You
right.
got AI analyzing all this data, making these predictions, even starting to guide decisions. How do we make sure it's not accidentally creating new problems as it's trying to solve the old ones?
So, unintended consequences. Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, let's say you've got an AI system that's really good at flagging companies at risk of insolvency. Sounds great on paper, right?
Yeah, early warning system.
Right. But what if that system, maybe because of biases in the data it was trained on, what if it consistently flags businesses in, say, a certain industry as higher risk, even if there's no real basis for it?
You're talking about the potential for AI to actually reinforce existing inequalities, even if it's not intentional.
Exactly. Or think about this.
Yep.
What's to stop companies from figuring out how the AI works and then, gaming the system a little?
Oh, interesting.
Like they could start manipulating the data points they know the AI is looking at. Create this picture of perfect financial health to get loans, investments, things they wouldn't qualify for otherwise.
It'd be like a financial arms race. AI on one side, companies trying to outsmart it on the other.
In a way, yeah. And that's exactly why
Hmm.
we have to remember AI, at least for now, it's a tool. It's only as good as the humans who build it, the data it learns from, and the guardrails we put in place to stop it from being misused.
So even with all this talk about algorithms and automation, the human element is still key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, this whole rise of AI in insolvency, it just underlines how crucial human expertise really is.
Mm.
Because, yeah, AI can analyze data like crazy, can spot patterns, it can make predictions,
Right.
but it can't replicate human judgment. It can't understand the nuances of a situation, the emotional stuff, all those things that come into play when you're dealing with businesses on the brink, livelihoods at stake.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, insolvency, it's not just about numbers on a balance sheet. There are real people behind those numbers, business owners, employees, families, whose lives are being turned upside down.
And that's where you need human understanding, sensitivity,
Mm.
that ability to find solutions that work legally, but also, ethically.
Okay, so where does this leave our listener, the person taking all this in? What's the big takeaway here about AI and insolvency?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is that this isn't sci-fi anymore.
Yeah.
AI is here, it's evolving faster than ever, and it's already changing how things work, even in a field as complex as insolvency.
And it's not just about like efficiency and automating tasks, right? It's about the potential for AI to actually make things fairer, more transparent for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
But as we've been talking about, it also comes with these big questions, these ethical considerations that we can't ignore.
Exactly. The more we embrace these powerful tools, the more crucial it is to really think about what we're doing. Asking the tough questions about how this impacts people, how to prevent harm, that's got to be a priority.
Because ultimately, it's not about building the smartest AI, it's about using that AI to create a system that's better for everyone.
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the wild world of AI and insolvency.
Always a fascinating one.
Thanks for joining us. Keep those questions coming, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.